All right, welcome back to another episode of the relationship series. My name is Gina Spataro, and over there, my brother Sam Spataro, where we are always talking about the matters of the heart, mind, and of course, the soul. Yes. So tonight we have a very good topic because most people identify with narcissism as like everybody has it. Yes, some people have some qualities, but to be characterized as narcissistic personality disorder, you have to really encompass a lot of the characteristics, okay, and to the extreme. Sam, how's your week been?
Well, it's Wednesday and not pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing really new or extravagant or crazy. I've been fishing a lot more. That's one of my passions and my hobbies. It's a hobby that our grandfather, aka Nanu, taught me at a very young age, and now get to continue to do that with some good friends of ours and my boys. And this has probably been one of the years I've fished the most. And if there's some things that we could be grateful for with COVID, I would say that it's calmed down a lot of the other areas where I have now time for my passions and hobbies. So it's been really cool. Like I was telling somebody on Sunday, I think that's the first time in years I've fished all day. Right. It was just so cool just to be out there by the river with other people with the same hobbies, passions, and that's really cool people of all ages, and shared some ideas, some tips, some strategies, and just overall, just really amazing. I'd say if there's one area of my life that I'm really enjoying a lot lately, it's definitely that. How about yourself?
This week has been good. Some uncertainty with work right now, which is a little bit of a low. And my highs definitely, I think it was nice just getting together with a smaller group of family outside on the weekend, following the rules, of course. But it was really nice connecting them along the regulations. So other than that, everything's been great. My groups are great. My kids are great. Family's good. I can't really complain about anything. So all is well.
Good.
Yeah. Another thing, I might be helping out with a teenage girls group as they move their way through some sports teams, etc. So I might be doing some group work with them, which it's kind of like my passion right now is connecting with the youth, making sure they have a mentor to help them stay focused on path, etc. So everything is falling into place. And I always believe whatever comes into my lap at this point in my life, I have to embrace it and see what the gift is, right? So that's where I'm at. But narcissism, Sam, have you ever encountered a narcissistic person?
Well, I think that we can clarify one thing for our audience is we are not doctors, we are therapists, we are specialists in this area. However, our passions are to do with relationships, which are clearly matters of the heart and mind. And when it comes to relationships, there's so many different dynamics and facets that comprise who we are going to be. But a very big part of that is the personality. Yeah. And that is, who are we? Yeah. Right? Who are we? Who did we learn from? What are our natures when it comes to life? Learning how to deal with our emotions, the uncertainties of life, the certainties of life, the things that are out of control, the things that are. And what happens is you start to learn to compile a laundry list of traits and things that you pick up within yourself or within your partner that are either really positive or really negative. And a lot of the times when it comes to, I think what it really comes down to is I think every human being has some form of narcissism.
Yes.
But where narcissism becomes toxic in a relationship is when there are specific traits and characterizations and behaviors that take place, which then are very red flaggish, because there's a whole slew of negative consequences and side effects of those actions over time. And so I thought it'd be really cool to kind of I've pretty much immersed myself after I, talked to you last week about the topic for this week. And every day I've been watching videos on it. And I just want to share that with you right now. This guy is amazing. But however, Dr. Ramani, have you heard of her?
Yep.
Dr. Ramani Durvalsa, she is one that is really, really good when it comes to narcissism. But I definitely would say that I have a favorite, and his name is, just bear with me for a second, Les Carter, Dr. Les Carter. This guy is fantastic. His whole channel is devoted to narcissism, all different types of narcissism, and he really dives in deep. And he actually has a coaching platform, a website, and an entourage of people that he's interviewed that are also capable of helping people. And it's really interesting, because what I'm gathering from it is everybody has a form of narcissism, like I said earlier. But to understand where you are today, and maybe you have a lot of insecurities, a lot of anxieties, maybe you have depression, maybe there's some trust issues, that a lot of them can start from who your parents were and how they treated you, how they interacted with one another, who you needed to be for them, right? And those types of things can come into play in a relationship, because then you start to attract that type of person that could be a narcissist. Because a lot of the times the narcissist needs, they're the host, but they need, what would that term be for someone that they need to infect? They're the host, but they need a,
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm saying? It's just very simple. Help me out here, guys. put it in the comments if you can think of it. But anyway, they need
a recipient, right?
They need a recipient, right, in order to function.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to go through the 9 different things that are characteristic to narcissism that become toxic, in that you can get a better understanding. I mean, is this you? Is this your partner? If it is, what are your choices? What are some things that you can do? What type of help is there? And what can you expect later on down in the relationship that are the consequences of you tolerating being in a relationship with somebody like this?
And don't forget, because like you said, some people do have certain characteristics, right? It's not that they're encompassing of all of the characteristics that are associated with narcissism. But if you recognize that you are with someone or in close proximity with someone a lot that has all these characteristics, you can kind of play against them. You can kind of play like that Murphy's Law, or like that the end of the field, where it's like you can make them kind of think about their next move when they're trying to make you think about yours, right? So you can backpedal a narcissist as well. You just have to understand how to do it effectively. Because what happens is, once you do that, you start deflating their sense of self, which is really high a lot of the time. You start letting them see a little bit of reality. Sometimes they just need huge reality checks, right? Because maybe as a young child, they have been gifted this entitlement. And sometimes it's not their fault, because that's just the way they were raised, right? And we're going to find a lot of kids nowadays will have an inflated sense of self. Because like I always say, I feel like kids need to work back on a farm to really knock them back to a grounded situation. Get kids getting dirty and working somewhere at a very young age to lose that entitlement, right? But let's start with the first one. Okay. Exaggerated sense of self-importance. I mean, it's important to feel, that you have worth, but when it exceeds the point of valuing others around you as well, there's a kind of dent in the reality there. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm going to share my thoughts on what I think about this with the information that I've gathered.
Yeah.
So exaggerated sense of self-importance. So if we think of self-importance when it comes to a human need level, that has to do with significance.
Yeah.
How am I going to uplift myself to feel like the most significant person in this room, in this relationship, in my place of work? But if you look at the very first word in that sentence, it's exaggerated.
Yes.
A lot of the times, the things that they're exaggerating on in order to find that significance and that self-importance is really a lot further. It's a lot more than who they actually are or what they might know, right? So they always have that ability to brag. And I've met so many people that really fall into this category. And you literally know they're talking shit, as it's spewing out of their mouth about the things that they've accumulated in life and the amount of money that they have and how many houses they own. And the next thing you know, you find out that it's the exact opposite of everything that they're telling you. And even though they know that you now know, they continue to keep telling you these same stories because in their head, this is the belief that they have. They have a belief that their existence is their ability to feel like they belong is to continue to exaggerate the sense of self-importance, which they put at the forefront of the 6 human needs, which is significance. How am I going to be the most important person in the room? How am I going to be, I've had people that have worked for me that have told their spouses and stuff that they're owners of the company, that they've owned my vehicles. And I find out afterwards from their partners, all these things that they have told, and they're all lies.
Yeah.
So they not only lie about those sorts of things, but they can, feel like they know a lot more than what they actually know when it comes to a topic or whatever their education is. And it's just exactly that. We can call it entitled. We could call it, whatever you want to call it. But when it comes down to a human, kind of dilution, it's serving the need of significance. How am I going to be the most important self? Right. And what are your thoughts on that, Jean?
Yeah, I think, there is a place for significance, but when it's to the point of needing it to stroke an ego constantly, there's an issue. For example, like if someone comes to you, well, you didn't get me this for this day, or you didn't recognize me on, Valentine's with this big gift, or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like they're always seeking the need to be validated, right? And there's an issue because, one, we all know that there's a lack of somewhere, right? And they're needing someone to fill that void, to boost them up in their ego and their whatever it is that they're seeking, right? And they want others to make them or others to feel that they are important, right? But they don't want to reciprocate. That's the other issue, right? It's not like an even balanced scale. It's more tipped, and you'll feel the tip when you're in a relationship with someone like that. It's constantly tipped, and it's exhausting being on the other end. So notice the difference. If it's not reciprocated, it's a lot of the times a narcissistic characteristic. And if it's more of feeding the ego of the other, then watch out for that as well. So the next one is believes they are special and unique. We always tell people you're special and unique. So what's wrong with that, Sam?
So I don't think there is anything wrong with, telling people they are special and unique because, we are all different. We are all human, but we all have the capacity to leave something behind that another person won't be able to. Right. So whatever that is, we all have a unique gift that either comes from some pain in your childhood or in your life that you then turn into a business and you help others and devote your life to that. Maybe you're Elon Musk and you're mindful of ideas and you create things that changes the whole human species. as we know it. But when it comes to narcissists and when it comes to the belief that they are special and unique, they really have what that comes down to is they have the distortion between reality and their imagination. So that's really what it comes down to. I mean, how many people have you met that, believe they have these unique qualities, these special gifts, powers, whatever they might be? But yet, if you look at their life, if you look at what they've accumulated, if you look at where they are, it doesn't match what comes out of their mouth, right? I mean, there's always that saying that I don't believe what you say, I believe what you do. And when it comes to narcissists, especially if you're in a relationship, start paying attention to these cues. It's very important that you pay attention to the fact that if he or she is saying specific things about these gifts that they have and what they're doing with their lives, and all of a sudden you're starting to notice that there's some things that aren't adding up. There's some pieces of the puzzles that are missing. Don't be afraid to ask the questions that need to be asked, because it should make sense. It should add up. There should be all the pieces there so that you can finish that puzzle and then that you can move on. But if it's not making sense and if things aren't adding up, that's definitely a red flag and a characteristic of a person with narcissistic personality.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, like if they're bragging constantly about things that they're doing and they're not inquiring about, your unique qualities or special, talents, and it's always about the conversation always revolves around them. Look out for those cues too. Like if you can't get a word in about how amazing they are, understand that, right? Like, yes, it's good to talk for yourself and have conversation starters and get to know somebody, but there should always be a flow, right? There should always be a flow.
Reciprocation.
Yes, there should always be a flow, right? And it shouldn't just be a one-way street. So the next one.
But before we go on there, Gina,
yeah.
The underlying issue with this here is that these type of people have a very low self-esteem and low self-image. Yeah. So the whole purpose of having the belief of being special and unique is to make them believe that they are more than the dialogue that's playing out in their heads.
A lot of the time too, like this comes from a lot of traumatic events that they've experienced probably as children. And it comes out this way, right? So it's like masking what they didn't deal with a lot of the times. And it comes out in almost like this sociopathic like element as in an adult. And not only, and it's funny because when people are in relationships with people like this, and let's just say it ends, a lot of the time someone will go up to the person and be like, I can't believe you were with that person. I don't know what you saw in them. This is what, like, people see this looking, bird's eye view into other people's lives. And then once you step out of it, once you're out of it, you can see it for yourselves. But when you're in it, it's just like any relationship. When you're in a relationship that has some toxic behaviors, you don't see it until you're out of it. You feel it. It's draining. It's exhausting. Having to build someone up like this constantly, it's exhausting as it would be as a partner. But it's identifying, these cues as you go along and live your life with people that are like this, because there are people like this all around, right? And it's not to say that they are identified as narcissistic disorder, but they can have some qualities, right? People can have some of these qualities, maybe not all of them, right? So just be mindful of that. All right, so next one, requires excessive admiration. Admire me. What do you think about this?
So requiring excessive admiration. So have you been in a relationship? Are you in a relationship where your partner is constantly in need of your uplifting, constantly needs you to notice their achievements and their accomplishments, and reminds you by leaving little sticky notes everywhere, so that you can, they're really like, this is really about like being self-absorbed. You have to remember, and you hit a keynote on the other one, is these are broken people. Mm-hmm. These are people that don't know their identity. They don't know their purpose in life. They don't know their path. They need certain things in place to have an existence.
Right.
Right. So they require you, if you are in a relationship, to have an admiration for them. I mean, have you ever had a conversation with somebody where you can't get a word in, and you walk away from that conversation wondering, did this person ever care about anything about me? They never asked me anything about me. Like, you almost walk away just wondering, like, did this actually take place? Well, yeah, there are those people. They need you to admire, or they will then tell you why you should admire them.
Yeah.
With all the accolades and things that make them so great and wonderful. And this is definitely a sign to pay attention to, because, you know, someone who is, I don't want to say normal, but, you know, has an ability to regulate their emotions and function normally, knows that there's also that same caring level for someone else.
Right.
And to give, right, in a relationship, it's about giving and receiving. But when it comes to narcissists, it's all about the receiving,
right,
not the giving.
Right. Yeah. 100%. And you're reminded of it all the time.
Constantly.
You're reminded. Okay. Next one. This is a big one. And I feel entitlement. I don't know about you, but I feel like this is a generation where we are almost breeding entitled children. And it's not their fault. It really is not their fault. And the entitlement is more so like things are owed to them, right? The world owes them a red carpet to be laid out every time they walk. Or, you know, people should hold the door open for them. Or, you know, recognizing, like you said, recognizing their every achievement with grand gestures. What are your thoughts on entitlement? I mean, like, adults, yes, of course, are entitled as well. But I think that this is a huge generational gap right now with the teens that are coming up, I think, around that age group, because I see it. And I think I'm just comparing as to when we were growing up. But what are your thoughts around entitlement?
So I think of entitlement. I mean, you think of entitlement, like something's owed to me.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so I think it has to do with a place of power.
Yeah.
Right. So if something is owed to me, like kings and queens back in the day, right, that the peasants owed them their labor and their heart and their, you know, the fruit of everything. Well, when it comes to entitlement, it's about place. It's to me, in a relationship, it's about being in control.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So because I am the alpha, or I make more money, or because I think I'm smarter, right, I'm entitled to make all the decisions. I'm entitled to decide what we do, where we go, who you can hang out with, because I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, and you're just going to have to accept that, right? So the entitlement, to me, when it comes to the relationship, has to do with power.
Yeah.
Right? Because they need to be in power in order to function.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the entitlement goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you said, like, things are owed to them. They truly believe that everything should be done for them without any effort on their part. Right. However, like you made the analogy with kings and queens. Okay. But they're royals, and I can see the entitlement there, right? People who do have this sense of entitlement believe they are royals without the crowns or the name to back it. So watch out for that. If you feel like they are grasping at every straw, that you feel that they deserve every part of you, or to serve them without any reciprocation, that's something to be aware of as well. Okay, so next one is lacks empathy. This is huge too. I mean, everyone goes through struggles and loss, and sometimes we have ups and downs with our emotions, and people that truly care will inquire and ask questions and show some empathy towards what you're feeling. But the flip side to this is they always want you to have empathy towards them, right? What are your thoughts on this one?
So when you think about empathy when it comes to relationship,
Yeah.
and someone who doesn't have the ability to provide empathy for their partner,
Yeah.
what does that really say? I don't have the ability to what? To love.
Love.
Because to love is to show empathy.
Right.
Right. And the reason why that is so when it comes to narcissists is because they don't even know what love is or how it even feels.
Right.
Because they have no sense of love.
Right.
Right. And, you know, you brought up childhood and entitlement and all these sorts of things. Well, a lot of the times these type of people were brought up in a broken family structure, whether it was the father, the mother, or both, and weren't taught love, didn't know, you know, how to receive love. And, you know, now they're their older version of themselves, and, you know, whatever else got them to the part where they become a narcissist, and now don't have the capacity to empathize with you because they don't even know what that is.
Right.
It's not even in their vocabulary of their own minds, within their own stream of emotions. And so this is a huge, huge red flag. If you are in a relationship and you have a partner and a problem has come up, and, you know, you're bringing it to your attention, and they are showing absolutely no empathy, no care, no capacity to take the time to listen and absorb and see how they can be there for you, this is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
And, you know, also another thing to add to the list of things to look out for.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one is envious of others or believes others are envious of them. Very interesting, because they won't ever admit that they're envious of other people, but they will try and live up to that standard 100%. Or what happens is sometimes they will shame the people that they are envious of to boost their self-esteem and their entitlement as well. But they do believe that possibly even those people are envious of them, which is very interesting. What are your thoughts on this?
So I'm going to dissect this, because if you look at the first part, which is envious of others, so I mean, that can be both positive or negative.
Right.
You can be envious of others and, you know, really appreciate the success they've achieved in their lives and their relationships. And or that could also be in the context of a narcissist, jealousy.
Yeah.
Because they have such a low self-esteem, they are envious of others because of the achievements, because of what they have in their lives, because they don't have that within themselves, their own walls of their own eyes, of their mind. And then they come up with these false realities that others are envious of them, because it offsets those negative triggers, right? Which is the low self-esteem, right? Of the envy of others. And it kind of offsets it, but it's that constant up and down cycle that they experience where, you know, they might be, you know, in the closet about this and might not show it, but they are very jealous and insecure people. And are the people that are on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, scanning, looking at people who were past friends, people are in their family who have maybe, you know, got that family that they want, the kids that they want, the relationship, the money, the businesses that they don't have, because, you know, every day they wake up, they're just trying to find purpose, let alone find a way to, you know, look at other people and their accomplishments in a way of, like, you know, appreciation, and envy in a positive way. But it's always comes from a negative flip side.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you 100%. The next one's very interesting. Being arrogant. Now, this is, okay. I think, yes, a lot of people are arrogant. But to what extreme does it mean that you're, you know, headed for a narcissistic diagnosis, right? Because, I mean, if you look at professions, right? Certain professions kind of require this kind of personality trait to be successful, you know, and to persevere and, you know, push through, right? But to what extent is it a problem? What do you think?
So I think we need to make a fine line between arrogance and confidence.
Right.
There are many people that I know today, personally, and both that I follow and envy, who are major business leaders who are confident.
Yeah.
I cannot stand arrogant people and leaders.
Right.
Arrogant people in relationships. There's a major difference between the two.
Right.
Right. Confidence is in the knowing, right? And also having that ability to pierce people in a very positive way, where they walk away feeling good about being around you, and you uplift and you influence them, and they aspire to want to be like you.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to relationships, confidence in a relationship is a huge thing. Yeah. It's an amazing trait to have. It's constantly uplifting yourself and uplifting your partner. Confidence is always finding ways to improve yourself, and also sharing insights when problems come up with your partner, to be very empathetic and positive in the way to resolve and come up with solutions that is going to make the situation better.
Yeah.
Arrogance, on the other hand, is completely opposite. There are many people that are in this business world or relationships who are arrogant in the sense that, you know what, it's my way or the highway. I know better than you, and this is the way we're going to do it.
Right.
Like, who are you to say that you know more than me? Right.
Yeah.
So that's where the arrogance comes in. Right. It's meaning that, that I'm higher than you. I'm better than you. I have the knowledge. I know the way. Just sit back and let me do my thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And right away, when you're going out for dinner with a couple, or you meet someone who is now, coming around, or, I watch Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone on their relationship thing that they do. I love Grant.
Yeah.
I think he's a great guy, right? But he's extremely arrogant.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins is a very successful person, has equaled him, and he is confident.
Yes.
That's the difference. And when it comes to relationships, you and I could maybe come up with a list of people who people are confident, and who people who come across as being arrogant.
Right.
And that they give off two different types of energies.
Yeah.
They make you feel completely different when you walk away from that experience. Right. And the reason why arrogance is so tied into narcissism is because they're so wrapped up into their own heads, right, that aside from their low self-esteem, aside from all their insecurities, arrogance kind of like, shelters all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? It almost like it kind of like hides it in the background.
Right.
Right. And it gives them that sense of significance. But by coming across in a way that's very, demising and demoralizing, and not uplifting at all.
No, 100%. Okay. The next one is fantasizes of success or the perfect mate. Now, do you think it's because they think that they're perfect, that they deserve an image of perfection beside them? And the fantasies, so this is like a mental health issue too, right? Where it's like fantasies that are living within their minds that they're trying to play into real life, when we all know that perfection doesn't exist, right? So what is that? Is it a mental health issue as well? Is there underlying possible needs for looking into that? What are your thoughts?
Well, narcissism is a mental health disorder. Right. So it's definitely tied into the fantasy of success when finding a perfect mate. So pertaining to relationships, they're looking for that perfect mate because within their own eyes and within their own insecurities, they think that they're the end all and be all, which is why arrogance plays into that so much. Right. So they're looking for that perfect mate because they know that, they think within their own world of that fantasy that they believe about themselves is that, I'm not going to settle for anything less than, because I deserve the best.
Right.
Meanwhile, they've got holes, in a laundry list of things that they need to improve within themselves. And they have this fantasy, this false sense of self of, I'm only going to settle. I'm only going to, make a list of these type of things because I'm not going to settle for anything less than.
Right.
Right. Because they have that whole ego running the show. And they never will find the perfect mate.
No.
Because someone who is of high caliber, has a really strong belief system, will not tolerate being in a relationship with someone like this.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who gets into a relationship with someone like this and figures it out right away will walk away.
Right.
The only people that end up staying with a person like this is someone who comes from a background of hurt and brokenness.
Yeah, 100%. Alrighty, the last one I believe is takes advantage of others. Well, this is a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it ties in everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, if you're constantly feeling like the scale is tipped and you're being depleted and, run down, like obviously you're being taken advantage of. If there's nothing being reciprocated, no love, no empathy, feeling loved, etc., understand this is a huge one. But the thing is, you don't have to have all the other characteristics to have this one that makes the world a difference within your relationship, right? So how are you feeling about the last
one? I think this is very important, because if we dive into the relationship side of this, which is taking advantage of others, is they don't ever do anything without expecting something in return.
Right.
So that's how they will take advantage of you when it comes to relationship. Don't ever think that they're going to do something on the goodness of their heart.
No.
There's always something behind the scenes that they're expecting in return. There is never something for nothing. So they could take advantage of you emotionally, morally, empathetically, your heart, your mind, because there's always a game going on in their head.
Right.
Subconsciously, they're always knowing that if I do this today or tomorrow or whatever it might be, this is the likelihood of the things that are going to come back to me.
Yeah.
Right? There's always an end result for everything they do, because it's all about the sense of self.
Yes.
Right? So they could take advantage of you in the sense that they're not really being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that they are. Yeah. Right? So, I think those are my thoughts on that, because there's a lot of other things that we talked about that kind of ties into this. Yeah. But I did want to bring that up in that essence that, they aren't going to be who you think they are. They aren't doing the things, out of like empathy and love and compassion. It's because 1 + 1 will always equal 2 in their minds. And that is to serve myself.
Yes.
As a result of whatever action I might take.
Yeah. And sometimes too, like Sam said, you have to really listen to people, and sometimes their actions are different. Maybe they talk a big talk, but they're so different with you, right? And maybe it's vice versa. Maybe they talk a very sweet talk, and then they're this person with you, in the forefront. But it's recognizing that, because, just because one person lacks empathy towards a certain situation, but they don't have any of the other characteristics, doesn't mean that they're narcissistic. They have to encompass a lot of these traits, right? A lot of them to be really considered narcissistic. And sometimes we just throw that word around because it's easy to, but it's really understanding this personality trait, because it can be very detrimental to themselves and a relationship, right? And the person in the relationship, and wearing them down, right? Especially if they're weak in their mind and heart and soul. So anything you want to add to this before we sign off, Sam?
Yeah, I just want to add in, there's an example that I think of when it comes to this. So there is someone I know who got into a relationship with somebody, and I knew the person. I didn't really know the person to get in a relationship with. And, as I started to get engaged and get to know the people, the partner a little bit more, I started to find out the skew of lies that this person was giving them, that they had all these successes, they had all these this money, business, accolades. And as time progressed, this person started to use and abuse their vehicles. Started to use and abuse this person's credit card because they had no credit.
Right.
Started to use and abuse and break down this person emotionally, spiritually. And eventually it led to ruin.
Yeah.
And so, there's no reason why you should be in a relationship with someone who's taking advantage of you. The whole purpose of getting in a relationship is to make one another better while you work out the kinks, while you, go through the problems that you're going to go through, because these are relationships. We are all unique. We all bring something different to the table when we meet. We all have different needs, emotions, and wants and desires in lives. And let's face it, the majority of us at best on average have the capacity to communicate and deliver that to ourselves,
Yeah.
let alone to someone we're getting in a relationship with. So, if you stick by our motto, which is relationships are matters of the heart and mind, and do things solely from both things at the same time, you will create a successful relationship and something that is going to be worthwhile to be in for the long haul.
100%. So on that note, like Sam said, this is Relationship Series talking about the matters of the heart and mind, and help support us by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell. And we will see you all next time. Ciao for now.